Cheerio. I get the in here.
Town of Rocky Hill Planning and Zoning Commission,
At the
regular
last
meeting
meeting,
on
who was
Wednesday,
seated?
August 16, 2023.
Seated.
is
Who was
called to
seated?
order.
Who was seated?
First item on the agenda is the public hearing, which is continued from July
Sean.
26, 2023.
Site plan application,
Sean.
Andrea L. Gomes, representing Vessel RE Holdings LLC and Vessel Technologies, proposing 96 apartments, 91 bedroom and 6 two-bedroom, with 29 units being designated as affordable in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-30G, along with associated site improvements for property located at 125 Henkel Way in OP Office Zoning District ID 17-008, continued for the following reasons. Number one, to address public comments received at the July 26, 2023 public hearing. Number two, rendering showing the on-site amenities. Three, screening concerns, abutting land with the funeral home, transformers, utility boxes. Number four, sign placement and detail. Five, consideration of adding one or more affordable unit, bringing the total to 30 affordable units. Number six, overflow parking concerns. Number seven, enhanced E and S plan, specifically in the vicinity of inland and wetlands and regulated area. Number eight, soil management plan. Number nine, comments and questions from public on materials received at this meeting. 10, questions by commission.
And before we start, I just want to call who are the seated commissioners. It will be myself, Commissioner Zarelli, Commissioner Lecco, Commissioner Mahomes, and Commissioner Robbins. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Andrea Gomes. I am counsel for the applicant. Oh, I was just about to ask for that to happen. You read my mind. Thank you, Ray. Again, Andrea Gomes, counsel for the applicant. With me tonight is Josh Levy, Executive Vice President of Vessel, Alex Walter, Development Manager with Vessel, Seamus Moran, our consulting engineer with H&H Engineering Associates, and Mark Vertucci, our traffic engineer with Fuss & O'Neill. So the commission should have before it the tabbed package that we submitted with our supplemental materials dated August 14th, which responded to all outstanding commission, public, and staff comments and questions. We will be focusing our presentation tonight not on the materials we already went through at the last public hearing, but just on those updates and those responses that we've provided in that package. We also submitted a revised civil plan set at the same time, so the commission should have that. I will be kicking it off, and then I'll be asking both Seamus, our engineer, and Mark, our traffic engineer, to come up and touch on a few of the supplemental responses within their respective wheelhouses. I will note first, again, not trying to steal Seamus's thunder, but I'll note first that at tab 2 of our package from August 14th, Seamus did respond to all comments, outstanding staff comments from the Town of Rocky Hill Engineering Department. The punchline is we accepted everything and we incorporated those revisions into the plans. Again, he'll be going into that in more detail in just a moment. In addition, we did reach out to Fire Marshal Renstrom to confirm that he had signed off on the plan. He said he had, and he did send us his report, which we included at tab 5 of our package. That's the version he sent us, just to help make the reading a little bit more efficient for the commission. We highlighted the portion at the bottom where he said sign off or approved, whatever the verbiage was. So with those two responses and the accompanying revised plans, we have addressed and accepted all town staff comments. I just confirmed with Ms. Ricci in advance that there are no further staff comments at this time. Now, I'll be going through a number of the questions that the commission asked. I'm not going to go in any particular order, so forgive me if I'm jumping around a bit. I'll start first with the commission's request regarding affordability. The commission will remember, and Commissioner Zarelli, you just read off of the agenda that the commission had asked us to increase the number of affordable units, deed-restricted affordable units, from 29 to 30. We did go back and we took a look at that, and respectfully, we're going to be staying with the 29 deed-restricted affordable units that we proposed with our original application materials. We have an obligation to comply with the law, and the law requires here 30%, which is what we've provided. and we'll be moving forward with that. I'll also just note for the commission's edification that 30% affordable for 40 years is a substantial commitment for any developer, particularly in this market and in recent years, given the volatility of the rental market, where the difference between market rate units and affordable units is pretty extraordinary. I'll also note for the commission that the town still gets credit, so to speak, for the market rate units in this set-aside development. So if and when the town of Rocky Hill is ever ready to file for a moratorium from 830G, there is a point system that justifies that application for a moratorium. They're called housing unit equivalent points, equivalency points, and the commission does get credit for the market rate units in the set-aside development. Of course, the underlying public policy being the encouragement of multifamily housing in accordance with 830G. Jumping now to the sewer and water approval. So we mentioned at the last public hearing that we were still waiting for the MDC to sign off on our sewer and water application for the site. We submitted that application over 3 months ago, and we have followed Seamus's name may be on a do not pick up list at the MDC because we have followed up with them consistently, and unfortunately we just haven't been able to obtain a letter from them confirming that they have approved our plans or our application. That being said, in discussions with MDC, they do not anticipate any issues with that. We're just down to really final design details. So what we have suggested in our package is that the commission, if it's so inclined to approve tonight, that it condition its approval on Vessel obtaining final sewer and water approvals from the MDC. That protects the town, because if for whatever reason we don't get those final approvals, we can't build, and or we have to come back to the commission for a revision to the site plan to do whatever we need to do with the utilities. So it addresses, unfortunately, the delay we're seeing with a lot of other sources and boards and commissions and state departments with the MDC not responding in time, but still protects the town accordingly. Now I'm going to turn to screening, and I'm going to address it in a couple different ways because there were a number of screening questions that arose at the July public hearing. So first, I'll turn to the screening for the Brooklawn Funeral Home. As the commission will recall, the owner of the funeral home, Mr. DiMaria, submitted a letter into the record expressing concerns with screening and asking that we construct a fence. We explained to the commission at the last hearing that a fence wouldn't work given the grade differential between the Brooklawn Funeral Home and our site, which is at a lower grade. So even I think Mr. DiMaria suggested an 8-foot fence or something along those lines, you'd still see right over that. So what we proposed, and again, Seamus will show you this on the plans in just a moment, was we proposed the addition of additional evergreen trees in certain specific areas to screen the funeral home better than it currently is. I was actually out at the site today, as the commission can see the photos that I took. This is standing on our property with my back to Brook Street and looking in a northerly direction. The canopy there is pretty substantial already, and I grabbed a couple other photos. This is actually standing even closer to Brook Street at my back. The commission can see there's a large tree right there. And then again, standing a little bit further back, looking more at our site from the funeral home property. The canopy is very dense there, but again, we're proposing the addition of evergreen plantings to further screen the funeral home. Vessel spoke with Mr. DiMaria, explained why the fence wouldn't work and that we were proposing additional plantings, and he seemed to like that idea, and he understood the issue with the fence, and he didn't express any additional concerns. So we did confirm that with him in advance of tonight. We also discussed screening to replace the trees lost as a result of sewer trenching. So what Seamus did on the plans was indicate the approximate location of sewer trenching. Again, we don't know exactly where because the MDC hasn't confirmed yet, but we've indicated the approximate sewer trench location, And then we have agreed to plant additional evergreen trees to replace the screening lost. Obviously, the final number and location of those trees will depend on where the trench is and how large it is, which we won't know until MDC weighs in. But we have agreed to that, and the commission can certainly require that as a condition of its approval. Lastly, the commission, again, we're still on screening, had asked us about screening the transformers on site. As we mentioned at the last public hearing, the final location of the transformers is going to be determined by Eversource, and wherever those transformers end up will, of course, dictate the screening. So what we've done here is propose a condition of approval requiring Vessel to screen the transformers with fencing and or plantings to be determined or to be approved by town staff. So once we get the final location from Eversource, we would then have to come in and show, as part of our compliance with the various conditions, proposed screening, and Ms. Ricci and perhaps Mr. Sopelak would have to sign off on that before we move forward. So, Mr. Chairman, I believe it was you who had asked about the proposed signage for the community. We do have noted on our site plans the approximate location of the sign. I believe it's located just north of the existing site drive. We've put together, again, it's a conceptual design here, which the commission can see on the screen here. It will be approximately 6 feet high by 3 feet wide and will be illuminated. This is just a concept plan. It's not set in stone, so to speak, no pun intended, of course, but we will certainly run signage by town staff when the time comes to it and the plan is finalized with respect to signage. Mr. Chairman, I know for a fact you asked about this, which was visuals regarding the outdoor amenities. What we've done here is we've actually pulled the items we'll be using for the outdoor amenity spaces. Well, you can see the picnic tables that we have here, the bench seating, the bike rack, and then going forward, the planter with drainage that we're going to be providing to enhance the site. Those items have been selected to enhance and correspond with the modern design of the existing building. And then, of course, Mr. Chairman, we have our landscaping plan, which shows the plantings and that walking area in the back with the birdhouses and all of the other amenities. But we provided some visuals here for what else will be going in there. All right, so I will turn now to the other public comment that was brought up at the July 26th hearing. The commission will recall that Henkel Corporation did stand up and express a number of concerns with the proposed development. We did reach out to representatives of Henkel pretty much immediately following the public hearing in July, and we reached out a number of times but never heard back. We did receive a letter from Henkel Corporation, Attorney McNamee, yesterday, which reiterated some of the concerns and which I'll be going through in just a second. I will also say that Attorney McNamee and I spoke before tonight's meeting just outside of Town Hall, and we did discuss a little bit of what was going on here and their concerns. So the point being, I know the commission was concerned that we would reach out and try and have discussions with the two neighbors who had expressed concerns. We were able to reach Mr. DiMaria for the funeral home. We're unable to connect with Henkel until tonight. So I will not be going line by line through Henkel Corporation's letter, which the commission should have, and I am going to have Mr. Vertucci address the traffic-related issues or concerns, but I will just touch on a couple of the items regarding from the letter. So the commission will note, and I'll summarize our proposed conditions of approval at the end of my presentation, but we did suggest in our August 14th package that we install no parking signage along our site frontage on Henkel Way. We read Henkel Corporation's concerns, and what we're willing to do is we're willing to amend that proposed condition of approval to install a maximum of 12 no parking signs up and down the entirety of Henkel Way, if and when approved by the town of Rocky Hill. Signage is typically installed within the town right of way, so you can't just go and install no parking signs anywhere. So we would want to condition the condition, if you will, on the appropriate approvals from the town, typically the engineering department or the local traffic authority. So that's how we propose to address the parking situation. Henkel also asked that we show snow storage areas on site, and we already have those on the site plan. Seamus will point those out to the commission once he comes up to discuss the site plan revisions. Turning to the use of Henkel Corporation's amenities and private property, I do want to comment on two statements made in Henkel Corporation's letter. First, Henkel Corporation indicates that we will have, quote unquote, as many as 200 people living on this property. That's incorrect and not based on anything we've seen. Vessel anticipates roughly 115 to 120 people based in their experience in multifamily, and given the number of units and the breakdown between 1 and 2 bedrooms on site, so not close to 200 people. And then Henkel Corporation also disputes the statement I made at the last hearing. The commission will recall I said that we are entitled as the applicant to a legal presumption that we and our residents will comply with the law. I believe Henkel said that's not the legal standard in the letter, but it certainly is, and that's according to a lot of cases, but one of the cases is Brenmore versus Lisbon Planning and Zoning Commission, a Connecticut appellate court case that I worked on as a junior associate, where the commission reiterated that the applicant is entitled to that presumption that will comply, and concluding otherwise is speculative and improper. So with that background, turning now specifically to the amenities, I'll start right where I started. We're entitled to that legal presumption that will comply. That includes the provision or the standard that will comply with no trespassing laws, and also that our tenants, our residents, will comply with tenancy laws. So what we've proposed here is that we include in our welcome package to new residents a rule or a policy that tenants are not allowed, or their guests are not allowed to trespass on private property, or including the use of private amenities in the Henkel Way vicinity. We can work out the exact language, but we are happy to include that in our welcome package to each resident of the community to ensure that it's absolutely clear we're not condoning the use of private property. Henkel also wants us to include, the commission notes, Henkel proposed something similar, but wanted us to include a phrase in there that trespassers would be prosecuted. We are not willing to include that for the simple reason that we can't confirm that they will be prosecuted. That's not we are not Henkel Corporation, we're not the police station, we're not, that's beyond our purview. So we are happy to include the provision in our welcome package regarding no trespass, no use of private property, but it's suggested that the commission impose a condition of approval requiring Vessel to contribute, I think it was up to $25,000 toward the installation of a fence on Henkel Corporation's property if Vessel residents are trespassing on their property. I think it's important for the planning and zoning, or for this commission to understand that after the last public hearing, one of the Henkel Corporation representatives indicated to us that there are people already in the neighborhood who trespass and use Henkel Corporation's on-site amenities. It's an existing problem. So again, for all the reasons that, presuming it will be Vessel's residents, for all the reasons that's legally improper, Vessel is unwilling and believes it's unreasonable to have us underwrite or fund a fence to solve what is apparently an existing problem in the neighborhood. So respectfully, we're not going to participate in or be willing to contribute to a fence on Henkel's property. If it's an existing problem, Henkel could have installed a fence already to address the issue. I think there were just two more issues that Henkel Corporation had addressed. There was a footnote in the letter acknowledging that wetlands is not a concern here because, again, Ms. Ricci confirmed that town staff had agreed that a wetlands permit was not necessary for this application. So we all seem to be in agreement on that. And then the last thing was Henkel's concerns with future expansion. In my conversations with Attorney McNamee, and certainly the commission can speak with him during public comment to confirm this, my understanding is that Henkel Corporation's concern is that if the commission approves this application for a community on the subject property, that someday, if Henkel Corporation comes to the commission for an application to expand or change its property, the underlying OP district regulations will be modified or interpreted differently as a result of vessel being in the neighborhood. I understand and sympathize with the concern, but I'll just make two comments. The first is that has really absolutely nothing to do with Vessel's current application. That is a future hypothetical concern regarding another property owner's potential application. But then just more generally, I'll note that the OP district regulations are what the OP district regulations are, and they will apply to the property owner in the OP district if and when they file an application. So I don't think that's, the short of it is, I don't think that's really a concern for this application. It's just a concern being expressed by an abutting neighbor regarding the future. So with that, I will just touch very quickly, Mr. Chairman, on the proposed conditions of approval that we went through, or that we listed in our memo. That's at page 5 of tab 1. And it's just a summary so the commission understands where we're coming from. The first is the approval condition I already mentioned, which is conditioned upon final approvals from the MDC for sanitary sewer and the provision of water for the community. Number 2, confirmation, we discussed this at the last hearing, that we will conform to the suggestions made by Triton Environmental in their letter regarding the soil sampling results on site, including the provision of a soil management plan to the town in advance of construction. The third is that one I spoke about earlier about screening the transformers with plantings and or fencing if when Eversource confirms their final location. The fourth condition, this is the one that we just modified a few moments ago. We had originally proposed the no parking signage along our site frontage. We are, again, willing to do up to 12 signs up and down Henkel Way, if and when approved by the town. So I would appreciate the commission conditioning the condition, like I said, on town approval, so that if we don't receive town approval for whatever reason, it doesn't hold us up, but we will make every reasonable effort to get that approved by the town so we can install that no parking signage. And then the last is the provision in the welcome packet provided to each resident prohibiting parking along Henkel Way, so that's kind of doubling down on the no parking, but also the use of outdoor amenity areas owned and operated by Henkel Corporation at 1 Henkel Way. So I will stop there, and I will turn it over to Seamus to go ahead and run the commission through the site plan changes, and then Mark will speak, and then I'll come back up for some concluding comments.
Thank you. Is this thing still on? No? Go ahead.
Turned off.
Oh, there we go.
Yep, you're back.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for having me. My name is Seamus Moran, a professional engineer in Connecticut, and I'm the civil engineer for the project. What I'll do today is, I already gave you a full presentation in the last one. I'll just go over the minor changes that have been implemented to address some of the comments and the concerns that were raised at the last meeting, or the comments we received from the town engineer following the last meeting. So starting on the site layout plan, which is what you see before you. There's a few minor changes. Number 1 is the construction note number 12 was added to this sheet and to other sheets, and that just references the soil management plan that is to be prepared, has been prepared by the environmental assessment company. That's not in my bailiwick to put the environmental assessment information and soil management plan information on my plans, so I just referred to their soil management plan. 2 other items on this plan that also carry to other sheets are the addition of those 9 evergreen trees that you can see. If this does this cursor work? No. So there's 9 evergreen trees along that southern property line, 4 of which are at the entrances of the new. Oh, this does work. I'm sorry. Can you guys see my cursor?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. 4 evergreen trees shown here, which are which flank the tree line cut that we're proposing for the sanitary sewer line that's going through. So this tree line that's proposed is about 20 feet wide, as shown now. That's kind of guesstimate. It's probably wider. It's probably won't be that wide. An excavator is 8 feet wide, and that leaves 6 feet on each side for them to operate. So that's what we have shown here, with trees on each end of that to provide screening after it's been cut. And the other 5 trees are in this location here along that southern property line. On the drainage and stormwater management plan, we added a crushed stone berm, which is very difficult to see at the scale, but right in this location, right at the base of the slope. I'll go over what that crushed stone berm means in a second when you see the detail. The only other minor modification was a very minor grading tweak to the southern parking lot. That crushed stone berm that I alluded to, there's a detail on this drainage sheet shown here, and essentially it just provides almost a wick for that stormwater that ends up in the bottom of that hole as a conduit to get into the underlying sandy soil. The topsoil butts up against it. There's filter fabric to prevent the fines of the topsoil from going into the stone, and that berm is 3 feet wide by 6 feet long. That'll just allow that water to come over the top of the topsoil and enter the stone berm and get into that underlying sandy soil. On the utilities plan, one thing that we hinted at the last meeting was we heard some feedback from Eversource that there is electric and power available in Hinkle Way. So the overhead lines to the pole that were previously coming from Brook Street, followed by some underground to 2 transformers. That pole has been removed, the overhead wires have been removed, and that long trench for the underground trenching for the power has been removed. We're now showing power coming from Hinkle Way and a much shorter run to a transformer on each side of the access drive. That was just based on very preliminary feedback from Eversource on an off-the-cuff conversation that we can get them. It's just probably easier for that run to get to the buildings on each side of the roads, each side of the access drive. On the soil erosion sediment control plan, Attorney Gomes pointed this out already, but along that down gradient edge of the disturbance where we previously just had a silt fence, we are adding a second layer of protection. We're just adding a filter sock to the up gradient edge of that silt fence, and that runs along the entire length of the down gradient edge of disturbance here. So that on that down gradient edge, then we have a silt fence and a filter sock lining that entire length. And that detail, and one other thing was the town engineer requested that we use the town detail for the construction entrance, which is 50 feet long versus 30 feet long. So that has been implemented. The construction entrance is now 50 feet long rather than 30. And on the detail sheet, just here, we have added the compost filter sock and the town construction entrance. So that is it for our for our plan modifications from the last meeting. They were minor, but I think we've addressed all of the comments and concerns that have been raised to this point. And at this point, I believe our project is a good project and can be constructed as designed without public health or safety concerns. I think with that, I'm passing it to Mark, who will touch on the traffic briefly. Thank you.
Thanks, Seamus. Good evening. Again, I'm Mark Vertucci. I'm a senior transportation engineer at Fuss & O'Neill, 146 Hartford Road in Manchester. I'm also a registered professional engineer and professional traffic operations engineer as well. There were a couple questions raised at the last meeting. I just want to address a few of them. One was on the study area that we looked at in our traffic study. I did mention, I believe, last time that the thresholds for an intersection analysis set forth by the Office of the State Traffic Administration for analyzing an intersection are the addition of 50 or more left turns or the addition of 100 total vehicles at an intersection. we actually only have a total of 36 to 38 trips generated by this development overall. So as a result of that, there's not one intersection nearby that actually increases by more than 30 trips. But to be conservative, in the traffic study, we did still analyze the intersections of West Street at Capitol Boulevard at Hankel Way, and Brook Street at Hankel Way. So we didn't go so far as to Route 3 at Brook Street. That intersection is only sustaining an increase of 4 trips in the morning peak hour and 3 trips in the afternoon peak hour. So really a negligible increase. Most of the trips that this development is going to generate are going to be drawn from West Street and the I-91 exit 23 ramps. As far as some of the traffic safety concerns that were brought up, I did want to reiterate, we reviewed in the study the latest 3 years of crash data reported in the Yukon Crash Repository. There were no existing safety concerns identified. The crash frequencies in the area were low. No crashes reported at all at the intersection of Capitol Boulevard at Hankel Way, and only 1 crash per year reported at West Street at Capitol Boulevard and the Hankel Brook Street intersection. The crashes that were reported were minor in nature. There were no injuries, no identifiable crash patterns reported. So the minimal amount of traffic that we are adding to these study intersections from this development will not have a detrimental impact to the safety of traffic operations. There was a comment on truck traffic that was brought up at the last meeting. I did want to note that the turning movement counts that we did conduct included a vehicle classification. So they broke out the trips by cars and heavy vehicles, trucks percentages. So given the uses in the study area, the volume of trucks that were recorded was not abnormally high. The intersection approach heavy vehicle percentages reported were generally 5% or less during the peak hours. So those percentages of trucks were input into the capacity analysis that we did at each intersection. And as I reported last time, that capacity analysis indicated each intersection in the study area is operating efficiently at level of service A or B, and will continue to do so upon inclusion of the traffic from this development. Lastly, I wanted to hit on the overflow parking comment on Hankel Way, and I think Andre did a good job of explaining what we're going to do there. We do feel the site's appropriately parked. We meet all the requirements. It's unlikely there'll be any overflow off the site, but in the unlikely event there is, Hankel Way is only 30 feet wide. It's 30 feet of pavement, 2 15-foot travel lanes. So if there were a parked car there, it would impede the traffic flow in one direction. So we have agreed to, as Andrea mentioned, to install 12 no parking signs along the length of Hankel Way. So we'll put 6 evenly spaced signs on each side of the road in each direction. And this signage will appropriately address the safety concern that a parked vehicle on Hankel Way could disrupt the traffic flow. And with that, I think I will turn it back to Andrea. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask Mr. Moran to just come up very quickly and address snow storage on site. That was one thing we promised we'd address, and then we skipped in our long list, so I'll have him come right up.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Site plan?
Yes, please. I don't do off the cuff very well. So the storage areas are indicated by this dash line. So there's 4 shown on the plan, and just based on how vehicles would push snow. Along the front parking lot, there's a storage area here, another storage area at the end of this parking area, and then in the back corners, there's one here, and another one back here. And you'll notice that some of those are on parking spaces. What we're showing is we have 116 parking spaces shown. I think 102 are the required. So to meet the minimum, we can cover 14 spaces. Obviously, we're not want to do that, but we can still cover 14 spaces with snow and still meet the minimums allowed by the regulation both for the town and the state. And those snow storage tables about how deep the snow would be are in the table in the bottom left-hand corner, which I can't read it on this scale. You might not be able to either, but on the full-size plans, they're shown on there. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, Mr. Chairman, what I would suggest, again, I defer to the commission, but I'd suggest we open it up to questions for the commission. If the commission has any questions for our team, perhaps open it up to public comment. And then if the commission has no further questions, I can then do my concluding comments. I feel like that makes the most logical sense, but I defer to the
Yeah, I think our
commission.
process is now you have done presentation, we'll ask public if there's anyone in the public who would have a comment to, to the commission. So anyone in the public who'd like to address the commission?
And Mr. Chairman, just to confirm, I would be able to have concluding comments at the end. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Commission. Not just for tonight, but also for the last public hearing, having a chance to share our concerns. There was a letter that was submitted. I don't know if the Commission has seen that or not.
Just so you know, and I received, and the commission has on the table this evening, we received a letter in our office after the packet went out on the 14th, and we also received an email, and it was communicated, the same correspondence was communicated per the Land Use Commission website. So that cover email was printed out as well, and that's on your table this evening.
So I certainly don't want to waste the Commission's time. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that letter yet. If not, I can briefly summarize. If you have, I can just make a few comments.
Yeah, I think if you can just provide comments, whatever you want to address.
Quick summary would be good. 'Cause
Sure.
we just got it half hour ago.
Yep, yeah, so he's going.
Okay, absolutely. So first of all, why a letter? And I remember from the chairman saying we should get together with Vessel. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is it sounded like there was some misunderstanding between the funeral home and the letter submitted and what was happening with Vessel at the last public hearing. We wanted to eliminate any chance of misunderstanding. Second piece is there were some representations made as far as distances and how close Henkel was. Over a mile was said at the hearing. If you look at the traffic study presented by Vessel, the whole entire Henkel Way is only a quarter mile. So there were some representations that it might have been helpful to sort of clarify as far as how close we are to the property. And then having taken the minutes before at some of these things, when someone submits a letter, it's sometimes easier to hold on to than try and catch everything down on the minutes. So those were the real reasons to put that together. But the other major reason was there were hundreds and hundreds of pages submitted. And when I was at the first public hearing, we didn't really have a chance to go through that material. And allowing us to sort of submit the letter gave us the time to sort of go through it and hopefully be a little bit more productive. And by productive, I mean solution-oriented. And you will see from the first public hearing and from today, we are not asking to stop this project. We're asking for the commission to put a few conditions in that can protect the interests of Henkel and the larger community in Rocky Hill. So to that end, we've heard a lot about the legal standard, and I am a lawyer, but I don't presume to share anything or to give any legal advice here. It's not my place, and the commission has their own attorneys. But we've heard a lot about the legal standard and how onerous it is for denying a 30G application. That is not the same legal standard when it comes to modifying or placing conditions on it. In fact, conditions can be placed on it as long as they don't substantially or adversely impact the application where it's no longer economically viable. And there was a lot of work we did to make sure none of these things would fall into that category. So let me run through them very quickly, and then certainly I can answer any questions the commission has. So the parking piece. There were two conditions we asked for there. One was on the snow removal, and I appreciate you pointing out the snow removal so that we don't have to talk about that condition anymore. The second one is parking. And we had asked for no parking signs both on Capitol Boulevard and on Henkel Way. And I think I would leave that up to the commission as to what makes the most sense. I think Henkel can live with no parking signs on one Henkel Way as long as those parking signs are on both sides of the street and are visible. My concern is, and this is my ignorance when it comes to town law, If Vessel puts up those no parking signs and people are parking, do the police have the authority to ticket and to take action at that point? Or do those signs need to be put up by the town? If the police have exactly the same authority, and it can be represented there tonight, if Vessel puts up those signs and have it approved by the town, as the same as if the town did that, then we're okay with the proposal that's happened. If there is a different level of authority, however, if Vessel puts it up so those signs don't have the teeth that would with the town, then we would really suggest to the commission that those be put up by the town.
If I may, the commission has run into a circumstance in the past where they imposed a condition that was not something under their jurisdiction. It was under someone else's jurisdiction. It was actually under the state's jurisdiction. So the wording had to be in such a way we can encourage or we can inquire if the town will do this. Because this commission does not have the authority to do that. The legal traffic authority in the town, who is the town manager, has that authority, not Planning and Zoning Commission. So the commission could not say, we will impose a condition where on Capitol Boulevard and Henkel Way there will be no parking. It's not under their jurisdiction. They have no control over that legally. So that would be the legal traffic authority. They could, if they so choose, say, we will inquire, through the legal traffic authority if they will consider this.
So
And that's what they can do. That's what this commission can do.
So maybe if I could just speak to that. My letter, or our letter, reiterates the safety concern with parking on that street. We've heard from the traffic engineer from Vessel that would be a safety concern on that street. We're not raising it to stop the application as a safety concern if that can be mitigated with the no parking signs. To the extent the commission doesn't have the ability, or there's no one that can make that road safe for that to happen based on our view, but also Vessel's view, then we would move more towards a situation when this is a safety issue, and it will be harder for us to support the application. So I don't know what the best solution is on that, but it clearly is a problem that both sides agree to.
That could be something that you and now that we have this letter and it's on the record, that can certainly go to the legal traffic authority for their consideration, but it's nothing that this commission can say, we're going to put no parking signs on here. They can't, as a commission, do that. They can't say, we will put no parking signs on Henkel. This commission can't do that. And an applicant cannot put no parking signs on town property. So it's not up to the applicant, nor is it up to this commission. It's up to the legal traffic authority. So an issue was raised, and that can certainly be brought to the legal traffic authority. I can bring that to the legal traffic authority. You can bring that to the legal traffic authority. Vessel can bring that to the legal traffic authority. And as I stated before, the commission, if they so choose, they can say, have town staff inquire through the legal traffic authority as the possibility of no parking on Capitol Boulevard or Henkel Way. But if legal traffic authority says yes, fine. If they say no, that's fine also, because all we can do is inquire. So, it's not their legal jurisdiction, so.
No, I understand that. Then I guess for the purposes of the record and Henkel's position, that we would object on safety grounds to this application because there is no restriction on parking on that road, and therefore it is a safety issue recognized by us and conceded by Vessel. So the second piece that I just wanted to highlight has to do with the trespass issue. And we were trying to think of some solutions that may help out. I'll leave it to the commission to speak with the town attorney as to sort of what the standard is on that piece of it, but as a practical matter, placing that many people that close, less than a quarter mile, actually yards away from our facility and our walking trail, is going to be an attractive nuisance that will increase trespass on that piece. We understand that that could be speculative to a degree, which is why we suggested a fence if it became a problem. So there'd be nothing that would have to get done if there wasn't a problem. But if there was, then Vessel would contribute to that fencing. We tried to be fair by splitting it 50-50, and we tried to be fair by putting a cap so they knew what the worst piece would be. Attorney Gomes can speak to this. We talked outside, and they were unwilling to talk about the trigger. They were unwilling to talk about sort of the maximum, raising it or lowering it. They were unwilling to talk about any percentage as to what it would be. So we would ask for the commission to consider that fencing if this becomes a problem. It's a problem not just for Henkel, it is a problem for services in the town to the extent that there's more trespassing. We do appreciate in the welcoming package the trespass warning being issued to residents there. We had put in our letter that we'd like that on the application. We're fine with that being in the welcome package instead of the application. And then last but not least, this is not an issue for Vessel, and perhaps I'll hear it's not an issue for the commission, but I would like at least Henkel to be on the record for this. Vessel has come in with a 30G application with the bare minimum number of units in order to take advantage of that favorable standard. The commission asked if there was any flexibility to the high side of that, and the answer was no. But by using that minimum standard, they're able to negate or wipe away the local zoning rules. And we understand that, but what we would not want is that exception to swallow the rule. So if the commission allows Vessel to come in with these apartment buildings into an area that is not zoned for that, and then once the apartment building is there, if everyone else in the zone is no longer allowed to do certain things, then that, I think, would be an unfair taking. So we would ask is if the commission decides to approve this application, if they could make some note in the record that by approving the apartment or Vessel's application, it is not going to change the office park regulations sort of going forward as a legal matter, as a practical matter. And then last but not least, Attorney Gomes is right. We did flag the wetlands issue. It sounds like from the last hearing, the town looked at that. They have more expertise than we do, and we'll go with that. I am a little bit concerned to hear that both sewer and water are still not approved. Those are pretty big things, especially for folks, you know, that would have hundreds of people that are using the water and the sewers just down the street from them. So I would encourage the commission to maybe get that straightened out before action is taken to approve this application. If there's any questions that myself or Mr. Femps can answer, we will. But again, I really appreciate your time.
I think what we'll do is we'll see what Vessel has to say, and then probably we'll.
But we can't get into a back and forth debate.
Right.
It's the hearing.
Excuse me, just one second,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman. Could Mr. Femps just say one thing?
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we do have people wandering onto the site a few times a month. It's manageable.
You just go on the record, like who you are and
Oh, I'm sorry.
address.
Tony Femps, I'm the facility manager for Henkel Corporation in Rocky Hill. And like I was saying, we do have a few people a month wandering onto our property. Our security they have to leave the lobby to go out and ask them to leave the property for safety reasons, risks to Henkel. But if this were to occur daily, then that would be an issue. That's
I
what we're getting
I
at.
would suggest the police be called.
Yeah, yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Rather
what-
than
that's
even
what we'll
go
have
out and.
That's what we'll have to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, I'll just take a couple seconds to respond to the comments made by Henkel Corporation. I'll work backwards. I'll start first with the MDC sewer and water. Again, as I explained, conditioning our approval, if the commission were so inclined, on receipt of final sewer and water completely protects the town. That's the point of a condition. We will not be able to proceed. The building official would never give us a building permit. We could never actually put a shovel in the ground without those final approvals in hand. And if for some reason we did have to alter our site plan to accommodate a revised sewer or water approval, or we had to come back for septic, whatever it may be, we would have to come back to this commission anyway to modify our site plan. So conditioning the approval on final MDC sewer and water approvals is an appropriate measure here, particularly given that it's completely out of our hands. We submitted our application over 3 months ago. We can't, I wish I had the power to force MDC's hand, but I certainly do not. Regarding the concerns of future development, the commission knows we are here for 125 Henkel Way, and what the commission approves for 125 Henkel Way is restricted to the bounds of that property. It does not impact the underlying zoning for any of the abutting sites. That's kind of a very obvious answer, but I'll just state that for the record. Regarding amenities, I respect Henkel Corporation's concerns, but as the commission heard, it's an existing problem. And I'll just ask the practical question, which is, how would you actually monitor who is a Vessel resident versus a resident of Brook Street versus a resident of an abutting street? That would be impossible to monitor. And the proposed condition that Henkel has included in its letter is, if a Vessel resident is caught trespassing on the I'm paraphrasing here. If a Vessel resident is caught trespassing on the property, then Vessel will be required to contribute $25,000 for a fence to address an existing issue. I won't rehash, the legal standard. We are entitled to that presumption, et cetera, that I mentioned early. But just the practical aspects of that. How would you enforce that, and how would you actually confirm who's coming from where? Regarding the parking sign, the no parking signage up and down Henkel Way, I agree with Ms. Ricci. The commission cannot condition an application on a requirement that is outside of its jurisdiction. What we would suggest, again, Vessel is willing to install the up to 12 no parking signs along Henkel Way on both sides. The commission can phrase its condition, and I have done this in prior situations, where the applicants will make reasonable efforts to obtain approvals from the local traffic authority for up to 12 no parking signs. So that way, it's not hamstringing us on the approval of another body beyond this commission, but it's giving the commission some comfort that we'll do what we can to work with the town's local traffic authority, the town manager in this instance, to get that no parking signage installed. If the town approves it and we go through those processes and we get that parking installed, then of course it will be enforceable by the town, because it will be within the town right of way and have been enforced by the local traffic authority. So there is teeth to that, if you will. And then I do want to ask just very quickly Mr. Vertucci to come up and just touch briefly on, because we hit on the safety issue with respect to parking. I'll just remind the commission that we are well in excess. I think it's 14 spaces in excess of the state maximum or the state standard for parking for this development. So parking is not an issue on this site, and as the commission recalls, that's one of the reasons we designed the site this way, given the commission's prior concerns regarding parking on another site. So I'll ask Mr. Vertucci to just come up and touch on the safety aspect of that.
Good evening, Mark Vertucci again. Just to expand on what Andrea mentioned, we do not feel there is a safety issue from this development with respect to parked vehicles. So the site is appropriately parked. We meet all regulations, local regulations, also the state standard, and the ITE industry standard parking generation manual. We're well over the minimum parking requirements for each of those. So we're confident there's enough parking on site, and the parking should not spill onto the adjacent road network. What I did say is in the unlikely event someone, if they were to want to park on Henkel Way, there's plenty of grass on the side of the road. I think they would likely do that. They'd park on the grass, but in the event they did park into the paved travel width, it would force a vehicle coming in one direction to have to go around that parked car. But in the event that were to happen, if there were no parking signs there, that's a police enforcement issue. You know, leaving a car parked in the middle of a travel lane, whether it's here or anywhere in town, that's an enforcement issue. But again, we don't see parking from this development creating a safety concern on the adjacent road network.
Thank you. And for the record, Andre Gomes, counsel for the applicant. And I'll just add to that, I'll remind the commission that the 830G standard, if you will, is no public health and safety concerns, or the commission can only deny, if there is a public health or safety concern that cannot be addressed by a reasonable modification to the plan. Here we are proposing that condition of approval, saying we will do what we can to work with the local traffic authority to install no parking signage. So we've kind of solved that issue in one foul swoop to the extent it is an issue. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to pause there and I'm going to see if the commission has any questions before I make my closing comments.
Yeah, I think I'll go. Commissioner Zarelli, do you have any?
I have no further questions.
Mr. Lecco?
I have one question about pickup for school bus pickup of children. I noticed that was a comment that something that's not resolved as of yet. There's no you're not proposing any sidewalks along Henkel Way. The sidewalks will be interior to the parking area?
There's existing sidewalks on Henkel Way on
there's
our side of
existing
the street. I'm
sidewalks on
looking at
Henkel Way.
Mr. Moran to confirm, but there is an existing sidewalk.
Okay.
And then Commissioner, I'll also note that with 91 bedroom apartments, it is very unlikely that you're going to see many, if any, children in this development. But there are I was there today. There are sidewalks extending all the way down Henkel Way, and that is specific to our side of the street as well.
Okay, yeah. In that event, I have no other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morhos?
I'm sorry, I should talk into this. I don't have any specific questions, but when it comes time to decide to close or recess the public hearing, I have a few comments on that issue when the time comes.
So you don't have
No questions.
comments or
No.
questions or anything? Okay.
Not on this, on what's been presented.
Because,
Okay, I do have some comments. Can I? Okay, we have, which I think comes after all the presentations and the closing. I have concerns that the MDC comments haven't been received. The Eversource comments on the location of the transformers hasn't been received. Apparently, we've gotten an anecdotal comment about Mr. Di Maria and the applicant. I'd like to see that come from Mr. Di Maria, not an interpretation of a discussion. And also, there was a discussion about possibility of no parking signs, whether they're legal or not, and it was suggested that the town or the police department can may or may not say that they can enforce it. So I'd like to get something from the police department, from them.
If the town puts up the sign and they are MUTC,
Right.
Approved by the Legal Traffic Authority, and the town installs them, they can be enforced by Rocky Hill PD.
So it's definite that they cannot be enforced by the police department if they're put up by someone else.
Well, someone else cannot put up signs within the town right away.
Okay.
Because the town will come and take them
No parking
down.
signs is a non-issue.
Well,
No parking signs by
We can suggest.
the applicant.
we can suggest.
We can
right.
suggest.
Yeah,
And
they
then,
would have to get the Legal Traffic Authority and the town, to convince the town to put up the signs.
And then there's an open issue, or I wouldn't say disagreement, but a difference of opinion on expansion in the future, I'd like to see, this is why, this is a discussion
So-
outside of
so
a public hearing.
I
on-
think-
Concerning
Right.
expansion,
Expansion is not-
I mean, the regulations, the OP zone regulations exist how they exist today. The commission, if they wish to modify them in any way in the future, or anybody else wanting to apply to the town, wish for a zoning regulation amendment, they would have to come before the commission and have a public hearing.
Okay.
And that's how those regulations would get modified. Or when we
I got
do
it.
a complete revision of our zoning regulations, they may be modified at that point.
Okay.
But it's not an issue today, so.
and they
Okay,
got-
It's not an issue
Out of
based
Eversource.
upon this application. This application has nothing to do
They
with
didn't get
that.
Eversource, they got Eversource.
Yeah,
just-
they
just
did,
didn't-
Yeah.
They didn't get final transformer replacement, but they have
Well-
power
Yeah.
access.
Right.
And typically, MDC signs off after P and Z signs off. So,
Correct.
so a lot of those approvals, like the state
MDC
traffic,
won't
like
care-
with
won't
state.
care until it's approved.
Yeah.
Okay, we're,
So that's, you're kind of tied that way.
I mean, it's similar to state.
Yeah, like if you're on a state road,
Traffic
it's,
commission.
they're not going to sign off
Right.
until such time as P and Z approves it. And then the state, for example, if we were on a state road, the state may modify it, and that may dictate,
Whether they
Coming
come
back
back
A
or
plan
not.
change.
Correct.
yeah.
okay.
So,
All right, well,
Catch
those are
my
my concerns, and
Okay.
if, I think some of these things possibly we should get before we, I don't know if they will be discussed in a public hearing or just a continuation of the discussion at the regular meeting, but I don't want to proceed without actually seeing what all these people are going to say. That's my point.
What do you mean?
Well, Mr. Di Maria, well, the MDC, you
Again,
say
I
no,
think what
but
happens
Eversource,
is-
we have nothing from
Okay.
Eversource. And I guess the no parking sign situation is over. I mean,
No,
that's
no, the no
done.
parking sign,
Right.
all they can do is, as Attorney Gomes said, you know, you can say, you make it a reasonable attempt to work with the Legal Traffic Authority to install this, but if they don't, if the Legal Traffic Authority says no, it's no, and if they say yes, then the town will have to install
Okay.
it.
What we have to do is, we have to consider the application that is in front of us and decide if there are any issues within 8-30G.
Okay, the rest is
And then move on.
when we get to the
Commissioner
the
Robbins?
meeting, so.
My questions have been addressed in the previous meeting, so I'm all set.
Thank you. Commissioner,
Just a few things. So, Attorney Gomes, you addressed question, bullet point number 5 in the site plan application comment. You addressed that first because you were concerned that someone had talked about possibly 30 affordable units, and you said, absolutely no way will you do that. So I'm just curious, was there a rationale behind that? Because it just seems for 29 units to be at 30.2% and for 30 units to be at 31.25%, for 1%, we're going to call it out as a significant amount?
Well, Commissioner, I understand your concern, but may I respond? Mr. Chairman, okay. I understand your concern, Commissioner, but the reality is when a developer comes forward and puts pen to paper and determines that they're going to move forward with an 830G application and deed restrict for 40 years, 30% of its units, that is a substantial commitment, and they have to figure out how they're going to underwrite that. And they underwrite it with the funds made from the market rate. So a developer puts a lot of thought and a lot of consideration. We wouldn't be here today with all this investment if the numbers didn't work at the here 29 out of the 96 units. That is what 830G requires, and we have met that standard. And at this time, that's what Vessel is going to stay with, respectfully.
Okay, yeah, for 1%, I just wanted to know if there were any numbers you put in place with that, but apparently that hasn't been done. Okay. My second comment would be about the screening.
Yep.
You said fencing or trees, and I loved your pictures. They show many robust trees at this point in time, but in the winter, it's a little different. So I think we need to also think about the winter. So with the screening transformers, I would prefer fencing because it can be locked. It can be something that can be more secure than simply putting trees around. And that could be something to think about.
And Commissioner, I believe the way we drafted the condition of approval was screening for the transformers using plantings and/or fencing to be determined by town staff. So I think we left ourselves the flexibility. It may very well be if the transformer is located in a certain area, we can't put fencing all the way around. We've left the ultimate determination up to staff. I am obviously not counsel for the commission, but what I'd recommend is the commission can indicate its preference to staff that it include fencing. And then when the time comes, when we ultimately submit our proposed screening for the transformer, then that will be at staff's that will be at staff's discretion.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you. So just a couple clarification. So I know we talked about the signage and all that, and that's whenever it's resolved. However, later on, if there is parking on street, is Vassal going to have somebody on site? I don't know whether it'll be 24/7 or not or whatever, but in general, would that be somebody just to say, it looks like it's our guest or whatever, and try to address it?
So the commission will recall that Vessel has a community caretaker for each of its developments. The community caretaker may, but may not be living on site. The point being that Vessel wants that flexibility to pick the best person for the job, so to speak. They will be part of the Rocky Hill community, though. So, they're not going to be coming from Fairfield or something like that. They will be part of the Rocky Hill community. So to the extent, perhaps the community caretaker sees a resident parking in the wrong area or a guest, the community caretaker, and I'll look to Mr. Levy, may advise that guest or that resident, hey, you can't park there. In terms of enforcement, we cannot enforce no parking. We cannot, issue tickets. That would be within the purview of the police department. And I think Mr. Levy wanted to say something.
Sure, just in Josh Levy from Vessel. In response to what Attorney Gomes just said, certainly the caretaker is trained to speak to residents and/or guests if they see them parking in an incorrect area. If there were signs up and it was illegal parking, they would also be trained to contact the local authority if the people did not respond appropriately, so that there wasn't an ongoing issue. Whole goal, obviously, of good operations of a building is to both address the problem when it happens and then to prevent future problems from happening in the same time.
Thank you. And then the other clarification was on the parking, the welcome package. So is this welcome package part of the lease contract, or that is just like a welcome package where you have?
Okay, the commission has nothing to do with their leases or
No.
welcome package or what it says.
Where I'm getting at is, the notification that they cannot park or they cannot,
We can suggest.
we can, again, I think we are just,
Yeah, I mean, that's not you have no jurisdiction over their lease or
so let me rephrase, so.
jurisdiction over the plan.
Right, so, in order to address.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to
Okay.
address it anyway.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but we may be able to.
Understand Ms. Ricci and agree, but happy to also address your question. So the welcome package includes a number of things, community rules, regulations, things like that. It also includes, information on how to use their unit, and we have a smart home technology system, so that they have ongoing access, how to contact maintenance when there's a problem. It's usually the best place because people keep it. There's an electronic version also that gets sent to people, and they can refer to it over time. And so it's the best place to communicate things to people, which is why I suggested that we put it in there. We also, upon move-in with residents, go through those things with them so that they understand. So it's an opportunity for us to just, point out to them, this is, something that we wanted to allure you to, and we can even, explain specifically what we're talking to at that point so that they really understand it.
All right, thank you. Any further questions?
I was wondering if you can just refresh my memory, how many car chargers are going to be on site? Was it
I can do that for you,
per building? Was it
Commissioner.
8 per site?
There were like
I actually have that in my little cheat sheet here. So we have 4 electric vehicle car charging stations on site, and then we've provided 8 what's called EV-ready stations, meaning that the conduit is there, but the chargers are not there, but we will install them if and when resident need demands. So the infrastructure will be there for a total of 12. I'm going to look at Seamus and confirm that my number's correct, my cheat sheet. And that's what we've been doing in towns. We've been doing a certain number of EV charging stations, but then providing EV ready because it just doesn't make sense at this juncture to put that many in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. You can
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if I may, before I do my closing comments here and kind of tie this package all in with a bow, I did want to just quickly address Commissioner Mordhorst's comments. Commissioner, regarding Eversource, we do have a letter in the record confirming availability of electric from Eversource for the site. So we do have a letter. Eversource will not give you final sign-off until you have planning and zoning. It's that same thing we see with encroachment permits with the DOT and things like that. They need planning and zoning approval. So we have that preliminary letter from Eversource, final location of the transformers to be determined. With respect to MDC, again, I'll go back to we submitted our application over 3 months ago. We've been bugging them nonstop. Like I said, we probably have our photos in the MDC offices to not pick up our phones. But the commission and the town is completely protected here by conditioning our approval on receipt of final MDC approvals for sewer and water. Like I said, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, if we don't get that approval, we can't put a shovel in the ground. If we get that approval and it's different than what the commission sees before on the site plan, we've got to come back anyway. And that will all be gate checked by the building official who won't give us our building permit. So we truly cannot move forward without those final approvals. Regarding, I think we addressed the no parking. Again, we'll make, if the commission so chooses to add that, we'll make reasonable efforts to get approval for that for the town. And then respectfully regarding concerns on screening, I know, Commissioner, that you had indicated the concerns with the screening for the funeral home. I don't purport to speak for Mr. DiMaria. I have not spoken with him directly. I know that Vessel has. All I can say is that we've made reasonable efforts to reach out to him to discuss screening. We suggested, and certainly I think, Josh, was it you who spoke with? Okay, it was Alex Walter of Vessel who spoke with him. We explained why a fence won't work and that we're going to plant additional evergreens to replace some lost screening or to enhance the existing screening. As far as I'm aware, there were no further objections to that. And I'll just again respectfully mention to the commission the 830G standard, which is public health and safety, not screening. So just keep that in mind as the commission moves forward. We've really done what we can to address our neighbors' concerns in a reasonable manner. So with that, I will just dive into some concluding comments. I am going to try and keep it brief. And I've just said my first comment, which is the commission has heard now 2 nights of public hearing, has had a fair amount of written material submitted to it, and nowhere is there a public health or safety concern with the proposed plan. You've heard from Mr. Moran, you've heard from Mr. Vertucci that there are no such public health or safety concerns. We have sign-off from the Town of Rocky Hill Engineering Department, and no other comments from any other department in the town, and we also have sign-off from the fire marshal. So that in and of itself, I'll say the proof is in the pudding that there's no public health and safety concern here. The from a planning perspective, I think I just want to appeal to the commission's good sense here, which is this development makes a lot of sense just from a planning perspective. You're taking a vacant site in a fairly developed area and inserting a sustainable, energy-efficient, multifamily community that's going to provide Rocky Hill with the diverse, affordable housing option that it needs. We also did what we could, I'll remind the commission, to address all of the commission's concerns that were expressed in a prior, totally unrelated application, but we listened and we did what we could to design a plan that really met and exceeded those expectations. And that's the plan that the commission sees before it today. And some of those included, again, the parking was a big concern. We are in excess 14 spaces. We have those 2 dedicated loading spaces, 1 in front of each building. Mr. Chairman, you were concerned with the outdoor amenity spaces, which we've provided, and of course, excellent emergency vehicle circulation contained within the site fully. Vessel's proposal also furthers a number of goals, again, in the Plan of Conservation and Development and the town's affordable housing plan. I know I do sound like a bit of a broken record here, but I think it's worth reminding the commission that the POCD recognizes that while Rocky Hill has diverse housing stock in terms of the number of multifamily units, the plan acknowledges that a lot of those units were built in the 1970s. Unfortunately, that's a problem we're seeing across the state at this point, but it's specifically noted in Rocky Hill's plans. And as such, they don't meet today's housing needs. So on that same page, the POCD recognizes the need for affordable housing. The affordable housing plan itself outlined the following goal, which is to continue to provide for a variety of housing options throughout Rocky Hill to expand housing options and choices and help meet the housing needs of households of all ages, sizes, incomes, and characteristics. We certainly do that just with the provision of the units that we're proposing here, but also Vessel's methodology and its approach to building. You heard Mr. Levy talk about universal design standards, fully code compliant, the smart home technology. My home certainly doesn't do half of that, but Vessel has made a concerted effort to truly make their site available for every person in the town of Rocky Hill, regardless of ability or need. So for all of these reasons, again, I'll remind the commission of the 830G standard, and we request the commission's approval, of course, subject to the conditions that we've discussed during tonight's hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to close public hearing.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Motion for a 2-minute recess.
I'm okay.
Are you okay? I withdraw my motion.
I would call anyone in the public to address to the commission on the items not on the agenda. I don't see any. I'm moving on to consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Can I have a second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5A.
Site plan application, Andrea J. L. Gomes, representing Vessel RE Holdings LLC and Vessel Technologies Incorporated, proposing 96 apartments, 91 bedroom and 6 two-bedroom with 29 units being designated as affordable in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-30G, along with associated site improvements for property located at 125 Henkel Way in an OP Office Zoning District ID 17-008.
Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve the site plan application with the following conditions. The first condition, commission approval is conditioned upon the receipt of final approvals from the MDC for sanitary sewer connection and provision of water for the proposed community. Number 2, the applicant shall conform to the suggestions outlined in the May 23rd, 2023 letter for soil sampling results on the subject property prepared by Triton Environmental, including the provision of a soil management plan to town staff before commencing construction on the property. Condition number 3, once the final location of the Eversource transformers for the proposed community has been confirmed, Vessel shall appropriately screen those transformers to the satisfaction of town staff which may include fencing and/or plantings. And the final condition, that the applicant use every effort to approach town staff or the local traffic authority to consider no parking signs be installed and enforced along Henkel Way and Capitol Boulevard.
The fifth guy? No.
No, we can't enforce that.
Yes, yeah.
Can I have a second?
I did
Oh,
say.
we have second. Discussion.
Well, I did have some concerns, but I think your conditions are pretty much covered it, that and the comments about the MDC and Eversource. What I don't know if this would be a condition of your motion, but I'd like to know, prior to the staff approving those those locations and everything, that we, as a commission, are made aware of it before they give the minor modification approval.
Would you say that would come out of the language that's going to be discussed later this evening?
I can't say.
The language
We can
that will be
suggest to the
discussed,
staff.
the language that will be
Okay.
discussed later has to go to public hearing
that's-
and then would have to take effect, so.
So
So I would say out of our comments that we would suggest to town staff to update us on this application at every meeting.
a condition that we,
Well, we can't condition town staff to do their job.
but we can condition this motion to know in advance what they are going to approve.
I think-
Does that-
Yeah, but then
I
we get
think-
into major, minor, and we're getting into the weeds.
Again, I think so, the bottom line is we have that condition that they'll have to approve, and what staff knows is that before they approve it, they will come to the commission, discuss.
If it's a major
I have two
change in plan.
questions, basically, one on the motion and one on what Alan's saying. So, on the motion, you talked about every effort to approach the LTA, Legal Traffic Authority, to install no parking signs on, was it Henkel Way and Capitol Boulevard,
Correct.
or just?
We'll let the authority and town staff decide what is deemed necessary in that location.
Okay, that would be the LTA. And then to Alan, I would ask, are you speaking about the screening of transformers? Because there was representation on the commission that fences were preferred. Typically, what we would do is a combination of fence with buffering on the, softening the effect of a fence. Fence is very harsh. So you put the, like, evergreens or something around it, small
Right.
shrubs or something around it. So is that what you're speaking of? Or
Just,
the screening of the transformers?
yeah,
Okay.
the fence, in fact, let me be more explicit. Can we change your condition to call for fencing and this is a combination, and screening of the fencing with the tree or evergreens like you just mentioned?
Well,
It was,
soft-
it was fencing and plantings.
Well,
Well, you
fence-
said
I
and
think it
or.
was and/or.
Take out the or, and I'll be happy.
Could we say fence?
I will accept that change in conditions. I will say and not or.
Thank you. Not to be a pain in the neck.
It's all right.
Okay.
Okay, that's all.
Any other discussion?
What about the fifth one that you didn't read? And I know the first one, there's nothing we can do about as far as the parking. We've already addressed that. But what about, I don't know if it's a condition or an understanding statement, that it's the understanding of the commission that the applicant will do everything within their means to communicate the concerns of the surrounding properties, and that which areas are.
So would you want to put a condition that says we suggest to the applicant that
I-
what you just said, or it's kind of hard to enforce
Yeah, no,
to tell them
it's
how to
hard to-
run their business
No, I know.
on a site plan application.
I think that's-
That was my
It's just
concern
that
about doing that.
They offered it, and
I think-
it's a concern.
It's in the record.
It's in the,
And
think they have-
offered
along
it,
with,
and
along with 100 other
How do you
things
lock 'em
that
into it?
Can't be conditioned. So.
I think they had offered it, right? I mean, we are not required, they have offered it, so we are just going along with that and say,
Right.
we recognize that would be, done. So
or say we accept
Right, or we
the
accept,
applicant's condition that they will, include information in the welcome packet.
Give me the condition you want to do, and I'll see if I can accept it. We'll go through both acceptor and the seconder.
Okay, the only thing they're trying to work around here is that in their offer, they talked about prohibiting parking along Henkel Way, and we don't know that, right?
No, we're just talking about if we did anything with this, I envision the wording being that the commission would accept the offer of the applicant to include documentation or verbiage in their welcome packet to their residents to not park along Henkel Way and/or Capitol Boulevard as enforced by the local traffic authority.
That would make sense.
I don't know that I would even do that.
Yeah. I'm trying to make it up as I go along.
Yeah, because we have no business to dictate what is in their welcome packet. The commission has no business to dictate what is in their lease. We do, with respect to the 29 units are going to be designated affordable as per statute, but that's it.
Could we condition that they put a sign on their property that instructs?
Signs, we don't regulate content. Now we get into that's a whole nother
Yeah,
issue.
yeah, I understand. I'm just trying to make a workaround.
No.
I think,
Yeah.
and the applicant and the attorneys knows what commission's role is and what they can accept, not accept, and having known that, they have offered to the commission one of the things, and this is what we are talking about, that the applicant would, shall include. I mean, we are not saying, what we are doing is we are just taking their offer and say, okay, we are just taking your offer.
You can't
making sure.
oppose that condition on them.
No, we are
Even
not
though they're
putting-
offering it up, you
Right.
can't impose that condition.
But I think so,
He's trying to say, how do we
We
accept
are-
their offer formally? That's what he's trying to ask.
because applicant comes to the commission with
We
a
have to
lot
go
of
by,
things.
well, we have to
right?
go with the body of what they said.
Right,
We have to go with the body of what they said, that they would do it as part of their, they went on record saying they would do
Right.
it. We can't condition it, but they went on record saying they
Right.
did it.
Take it on faith, that's
And-
all it is.
so I think,
That makes sense.
And then, once again,
But we have no authority.
obviously, the laws are the
basically-
laws. I know there's issues
I'm not
with,
saying that.
concerns with trespass. The law is the law, and that's not something we enforce. That's not something I enforce. That's something the police enforces. So that's not something for this commission to even concern themselves with.
Can't you put like just a stipulation?
You
This
can't,
is
unfortunately, you
only-
can't. Once we have the motion, unfortunately.
Okay.
Follow the rules.
I mean, you can always, people can offer up friendly amendments, and you can do things back and forth that way,
I
and
think
see
we
if
just
the,
take them on their word and just.
yeah, so,
It's on the record.
so I think it's, again, for everybody's benefit, this is on the record, so,
Oh,
okay.
Move to vote.
Any other comments?
Move to vote.
All right, vote on the motion to approve this application.
With
Just one
condition.
clarification, has the condition, you've taken "or" out of,
We took or out, we did
Yeah.
and both the
It's
maker and the.
receipt
have
of
accepted it.
MDC,
I was a
you know,
seconder.
you can't proceed without receipt of MDC approval of water and sewer adequacy.
right,
for-
we covered that.
Yeah. And then per the May 23rd, 2023 correspondence, the soil sampling and soil management plan will be given to town staff. The transformers will be screened with fencing and plantings. Every effort would be for the applicant to approach the Deco Traffic Authority to install no parking signs within the town right-of-way on Henkel Way and Capitol Boulevard.
Yep.
That's good.
Conditions.
Okay. It's clear.
So,
So move the vote.
Move to
move
vote.
to vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, I think,
Passes.
Pass.
yeah, I just,
We have-
if you want to comment on,
I'm,
right? So.
I don't have any comments other than what was said in the public meeting, and this is our first entry into 8-30G world, and I believe that we have a good application that satisfies a lot of our needs as well as town needs, and getting more affordable housing in the town.
So I would offer, my
That's,
support, right? That's,
that's not
well, I just want
appropriate.
to give, that's okay.
Yeah, that's not appropriate.
No, I mean, why,
We voted.
yeah, why I vote in support of, right? That's what it is.
Well, that's usually prior to the vote, though.
Yeah, that should have been discussed during the debate before the vote. The vote closes everything.
We all voted yes.
Just say congratulations.
Yeah.
Support of the vote.
Oh, we don't
I
do
think-
support of the vote, we do support of the motion.
Right. We're
All
done.
right, that's,
Either way, you're up, sir.
you're all set.
Gotta learn how to do this stuff.
Moving on to 5B.
Discussion for finalizing language and set public hearing date for modified language to sections 9C63 and 9C64 of the Rocky Hill zoning regulations on major and minor changes to a site plan.
Per the last meeting, there was a request of the commission to get information back to me on and before a certain date. I only received 3 responses. Alan, who was the original proposer of the change, and Victor, and Sean. Those are the only 3 that I had received. I believe those went out in the packet. That's correct. The changes that I put together, based upon what I see here and received, are on a page that was on your table this evening, and it was dated today. That you have what's existing, not existing per Alan's proposal, but existing in our current text is on the opposite side. But the changes, as far as major changes go, and if you'd like, I'll read them. Some of them I totally concur with. Change in use if parking requirements are increased due to the new use and intensity of on-site activity increases by the inherent nature of that type of use. Meaning here, if you look at our regulations and you look at our use tables, and look at our parking regulations, some of different uses have the same exact parking requirement. If they have the same,
This right
no,
here.
I'm talking about. Which one are we looking at? This
It's on the desk, it was on our
table?
packet. I mean, it was on our desk tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like this.
I don't know.
Oh, it's the very last page.
Yes.
Yep.
The last page of the
Yeah.
packet.
Okay.
So, some uses in the same zone may have the same exact parking requirement. Oftentimes, you may have some uses that have the same exact parking requirement, but they may, by their inherent nature, have a more intense use in that you may have a funeral parlor, for example. They might be very slow and quiet most of the time, but every now and then you have intense traffic. That, to me, is a more intense use than, say, a art gallery.
Alan. On that side, that
Did you?
keep on, yep, in that pile. It's right
I
after
have-
the Henkel
I may
letter.
have another one.
It's right after the Henkel letter.
I didn't get that.
I didn't get it either.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was at the end of the
Pass.
package.
I know.
Pass.
This thing here?
You did get it.
Yep.
I got
probably.
this, but not,
Oh, then.
That's it.
not that,
Yeah.
oh,
That's it.
that's it.
The date's in the lower left-hand corner.
Yeah, I got that.
This is you.
Not that, I didn't see it that.
Okay, never mind. I got it.
That, I know people got that before. You want that? Have it. There you go. I think you got it. It should be 816. Did you get that one?
Yeah, well, just now.
Okay. Well, it was on the table. That's why I'm going through line by line. So that's the meaning of that one, of A. Because sometimes you may have a change of use. If you're going from a restaurant to a restaurant, I don't care the ethnicity of the restaurant or whatever, that has nothing to do with anything. But if you're changing the number of seats, for example. that
Go
would-
ahead. You finish, and I just want to ask you a question after you're done.
Okay. But if you're changing the number of seats, that may kick in another application.
You talking
But-
about paragraph 4?
I'm just taking 4A.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, 4A.
I am.
But sometimes you have certain uses that have the same parking regulation, or same number of parking spaces. So, and that's where we're getting at here. Other uses by their inherent nature, if you have a specialized gallery, for example, that has, or by appointment, that's going to be one thing. But if you have an office building where everyone arrives and leaves at the same time, that's a more intense use.
Can I just interrupt for a
By
second?
all means.
By all means?
I
did
get
you
first
say?
By all
interruption.
means.
I think what we're mostly concerned, major changes, you're going to come to us, correct?
But I even modified that.
Okay.
I modified that.
He's proposing modification.
Right, okay. Because I think we're all concerned with what is a minor change.
Yeah, and I
that
think this was.
Sneak
yeah.
through that when they really should be major changes.
Well, that's why I'm saying a change of use should not be a major change unless
It depends.
its intensity or it's a parking requirement issue.
But we approve an application based on the use that the applicant is coming to us to ask for, correct? So if it's a change of use for whatever reason, whatever else is involved, that kind of changes the entire sense of the application, which is why any change of use,
But we don't have
Should
that,
come
for
to us.
example, in shopping centers.
right?
In shopping centers, we have businesses coming and going all the time.
Yeah, well, that's,
We don't necessarily have everybody come back. Obviously, if it's a special permit use, they have to come back. If they're changing from this restaurant to that restaurant, it's not a change of use. If they're changing from a certain type of liquor permit to a different type, they have to come back.
yeah.
If they're changing from that's why I'm getting in here, if they're changing from one type of use that requires 4 per thousand for parking to another use that requires 4 per thousand per parking, no, I would. Sorry.
Can we start by going backwards and all agreeing that if it's not a minor change, that it's a major change, and why are we defining major changes?
I think that's what I
Yeah.
said the first time.
But I think what
Yeah, it
The
makes it
whole
less complicated.
intent of this exercise and
But then I would move I would reword part A, reword A of
On
major
4 or
change.
3?
And on item 4.
Yep.
Where you're not changing the parking requirements or the inherent nature, the intensity to, I would move that up to minor change. Because I personally
So-
don't think we want all these businesses,
But-
I'm switching from this type of business that requires 4 per thousand to this type of
So
business.
can we
that
all
requires-
agree, first of all, that we're working on the premise that we're defining minor changes, and everything else is a major change that needs to come before us?
I think that's.
Can we all make sure that we're agreement on that?
Yes.
And then we decide what minor changes are?
but on the other hand,
Yes,
Wait,
yes.
wait,
Gotta
let's-
start
let's-
somewhere.
The reason
Let's
is-
ask everybody here.
again, I'm sorry?
Let's ask everybody if that's the premise before we
That's
go.
the way I saw it,
Okay.
too. Now, the thing is,
Do you
this
agree?
is,
I agree.
Do you guys agree? That if it's not a minor change, then it's a major change? And we work on the
I mean,
minors?
conceptually, that logic
Yeah.
works,
But
but
what- now we're defining
what we
what-
started with dealt with, did both, so
Yeah.
that's where.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If
We are
we go-
changing,
I
we
think-
are
me-
changing now,
I
so-
think everything
Yeah.
falls, a lot of things fall in between minor and major. if
There's a
you
lot of
define
things that
both.
should not
If you
be
define both,
let me,
major.
I just think it's cleaner if you define minor and caveat the language. Generally, minor changes generally include this. Anything other than that is generally considered a major change.
Okay,
But-
let's hear, yeah.
The thing that you're bringing up now is, let's say a shopping center is already built. They have a restaurant, and they decide to put in a convenience store. I'm really being
Medical,
wacky here.
medical, go extreme, go
Yeah,
medical.
okay, a medical. That's not what's covered. The whole purpose of this exercise, again, goes to, well, let me go back to what generated this. We saw
Done
some
with that.
what some consider major changes be approved as minor changes in the course of construction or prior to construction. Do you want me to specifically say what? I'm talking about the Foundry property.
I know what you're talking about.
Right, so this is, what you're pointing out is that something is already built, and that's really not really what we were concerned about.
Well,
We're concerned about, 10 years ago, we approved the Foundry,
Well, if
based on a site plan and based on a site plan application.
If you,
Now-
if you look at what I did, though, I'm talking, and I know what your concerns were there, increase in residential density on site. That was one of the things that I considered, okay, based upon what this commission and how they felt about something I did in the past, I put down increase in residential density on site.
Not personal.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know that, but I'm just saying that, so it's in here, and it's spelled out. I mean, these say include but not limited to, and I think there needs to be some sort of guidance for those out there as well.
Right.
Because these regulations are read by attorneys and applicants and potential applicants also. So there needs to be something besides, okay, this is a minor change and everything else is a
Okay,
major
I got it,
change.
I
So
got it.
this does give you some sort of guidance. And I'm thinking you really want to put,
so we're looking at this as
Some
a whole
example.
now. I mean, I was just, you started out with that one, and I see that paragraph C covers the major concern of a lot of people that have brought this subject, this
well,
attention.
and
Yeah.
that was modified also.
Yeah. So,
Because, well, B was reduction of landscaping or open space area by 10% or greater, because obviously you're increasing impervious area.
Yeah,
You
that
do have
makes
a
sense.
checks and balance with impervious area, maximum, minimum landscaping, that type of thing. Expansion, and one of the things I talk about with expansion is you may want to put a number on that, because if someone's putting like a parapet wall over something, is that an expansion? If someone's bumping out a little corner, is that an expansion of a building? So you may want to put a square footage on that.
But
If,
that,
or,
that's, we are getting too much detail. I mean,
well, I know that, but if you look at this,
it's,
the word expansion means I'm taking the footprint of the building, I'm making it bigger.
Because
I mean,
a project could be
But it could be
50,000 square
But
feet.
she's saying it
you
could
know.
be decorative, and it's like, that's a,
you
No,
know,
but that's
can
what
I
I
bump
meant.
this out by another 20 feet, you know,
I mean-
a 20-foot, though, I'm like,
But,
you
but,
got to go back to the commission.
but a 50,000 square foot project, right? Versus, that increases by 10,000, for example,
That's
right?
a- that's a-
Versus-
that's a big-
major, right?
big.
Versus 1,000 square feet project and expands by a foot, right? It all goes by how big, how small.
Well, yeah,
So
that's,
if we say 200 square feet, now 200 square feet could be
it'd be nothing.
something like,
nothing for 50,000 square
But,
foot.
okay, but,
Something like
okay.
a wall.
So that's like a one-word thing, but
Yeah.
increase in height, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have checks and balances there. Number of stories.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers of stories, I think, is actually a little bit more important than increase in height, almost, because if you're increasing a story, that adds to the square footage, that relates to parking, that, increase in height. If you're doing that to maybe make it a little more interesting with a roof line and not necessarily a story, then that's actually a plus. But we're getting into the weeds, I get it. Reconstruction of any primary structure or building, relocation of buildings on site to materially change approved plan. And I don't mean necessarily taking a building and cock it a few degrees, one way or the other. But maybe if you're looking at the back of the building, or if you're moving it in such a way so it's casting shadows on the abutting property, or, you know, something like that. I mean, it is a subjective thing.
So reconstruction of a primary structure or building, that's a major change. I mean, you tear down a building, a house, you rebuild it.
Well, we're not, this isn't single-family homes. This does not apply to single-family.
This does not apply to single-family homes.
Oh, no,
Okay,
nor should it.
right, okay.
Okay.
Reconstruction because of aesthetics and.
Increasing residential density, I got that. Additional signage requiring commission action per regulations.
That's fine.
You have sections in the regs that require your approval anyways. They're still got to come back. So, significant changes in grading so as to affect the drainage system. So they're going to be modifying drainage. Modifications to
But that
site.
effect could be, again, the effect could be it could be any effect, right? It
So do you
could,
want a negative effect?
right?
Would be
because-
adversely affect the drainage system.
A negative effect?
Because that
could
could
say
be
that.
anything. I
If they
mean,
come in and say, we've got 5 buildings planned, we're only going to build 4,
No, I
we
mean,
don't have to approve
That's
something
good.
like that. So a negative.
But-
So it'd be an increase.
Like
Yeah.
I say-
Ne-
Oh,
Negative.
she's talking about drainage.
drainage.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just
Yeah.
projecting that onto,
Yeah.
because
Because again-
I don't know about drainage.
Somebody may say, oh, I think this is huge drainage impact, right? And then it's like,
Well,
how to quantify that, right? Drainage impact that happened during the storm versus regular drainage.
but that was
right?
rain.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't, if we could control the rain, that's really good. If you guys can do
No,
that,
no,
That's
I'm
fine,
saying-
that makes
That's good.
sense, okay.
So-
Significant
so-
changes.
So that would be either mostly regrading a site or adding additional pervious area. That's probably what,
yeah, usually.
what those two things would be covered under. And-
Yeah, if you change the flow pattern, that it now impacting the adjacent property,
Yeah.
it's a problem.
Right, maybe we can say impacts to adjacent. Right, is that,
Well, now instead of putting a pipe underground, you're coming up with, maybe you have to do some on-site detention, or you gotta do something else, create an on-site detention pond with, you know, a riprap channel or whatever to, you know, slow down the outflow. Yeah, you adding that, you gotta come back.
right.
Okay.
Modification to site access driveway, and I specified on town roads, whether you add an access, reduce an access, or reconfigure an access. And we can't do state roads because we have no jurisdiction over state roads. So it has to be town roads.
Or private.
If
And
you-
this is non-residential, keep that.
If this is on a town road, I mean, a state road, though, if it's reconfigured, then the developer has to go back to the state to get that
Yes.
approved. So that's a moot point as far as the town's concerned.
Yeah, well,
'Cause they had to get
even if
approval
you
in the first
approve
place.
something on a state road, it goes to the state, they approve it, they may modify it anyways.
Right,
May
they
modify
approve it
the
after we
access.
approve it anyway,
Yeah.
no matter what. So that's just,
Yeah, that's
A
why I
moot point.
specified
Yep.
town roads. Increasing parking capacity of more than 10%.
makes sense.
And then the change in any condition of approval imposed by the commission, which is perfect. That's perfect.
That looks good.
So do you want to put these up in the beginning?
No,
So-
I think she's
no,
considering those.
Well,
We got,
No, how
Paragraph
do we
3 is-
do?
well, like
You just reword
I
it.
can reword
Reword
A.
it.
Reword
To
it.
make, put a negative before it, like,
And-
does
and-
not change.
And
the-
bring it up.
And bring it up.
And
into
bring
the
those up
line.
and then eliminate this?
Yeah, because if the.
Is that what-
if
Yeah,
the-
see how that reads.
I
Okay.
hate to define a minor change and then you're caught in the middle of a if it's silent, you're caught.
I don't get it. I mean, these are. a
Well, it
discussion-
says shall include but are not limited to, but that's still, I mean, I don't know if the issue is
So
discretion.
why would we put this in up top as
So
a negative?
she will reverse
well-
everything and put them up.
Well, I think
Oh, so
that's
this
what,
is,
as
okay,
a-
put the minor down below that.
No, no, no.
We're not considering,
I don't
we're
care.
considering that we shouldn't have to define minor changes. We should only be defining major changes.
So then wipe out the A through G of the minor changes section.
No, no, we were saying these are minor changes
Everything
and
else.
everything else is major. That's what we are saying.
That's the way it was,
So what will happen is whatever we discuss for A through I, whatever, they will be reversed and bring them up on top.
as major changes.
No, as minor, so
Oh, no. I mean, right now,
you know what I mean, right? So
Do it either way.
what Stephen Lecco said was, he suggested is everything that's not a minor, if it's not a minor change, it's a major change. That's what I heard you say.
That's what I had suggested, yeah.
That, and so what your idea now is to take these items under major changes, basically word them, in opposition to what they are now, and put them up top.
Right.
So-
That's
I'd
what
like
I
to see
think.
that one.
So for example,
Right.
H, right, it says increase in parking capacity of more than 10. So if we bring it up, it would say, increase in parking capacity less than 10%
Right.
is minor. So that's what exactly happened.
you-
So what you're doing is you are just doing opposite of what you said here, and it will become minor.
And
So-
then anything else. is a
Anything
major.
above, so.
And then
if-
put that in
if-
there
If the
as a
parking
line.
capacity is 11% or 10.5, it becomes major,
It becomes major.
because we
Okay.
said,
Yeah.
Is
up
that
to,
what-
And it's
So
simpler
reword-
to interpret.
It's very
Rework
simple,
this as
right.
negatives,
Yeah.
put them up top.
Yeah, and let
I
us
think there
see
needs
it
to be-
before we actually.
Okay,
There needs to be verbiage that says anything outside of these parameters are considered a major change and need to come back to commission
Yes.
or whatever it is.
So if I get this, we're rewording major changes to say that if this exceeds such and such, then it's
Yes.
major. I got
Yes,
it.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
You were saying write it as a negative and.
Yeah,
Well-
it's ultimately, that's what it's gonna say. when it
That's what
comes
it's,
back.
that's how
That's
it's
what
gonna-
will happen, yeah.
That's what will
Opposite
happen
of-
with the wording.
Opposite of what you have
Yeah.
here.
I get it.
So,
What about
Instead of
the
increase,
previous
it'd be
comment that
decrease
was said
and
before,
all
though,
that kind of
about
stuff.
decrease in parking too? I mean, what if you go the other direction? I mean, it won't, it's not gonna be as big an issue from an environmental point of view, but if you decrease so that, like, just think about the proposal we dealt with earlier this year, there was so little parking, there was no room to do anything, and that was creating a safety issue.
but it meets the
doesn't she-
that
still
met
gotta
the
meet the
regulations.
regulations.
That
Yeah.
met the
But-
regulations.
Here,
She can word A to encompass that, like you were saying, that you can encapsulate all that with regulation
Yeah.
words
Yeah.
about regulation.
You gotta meet the minimum.
Yeah,
Anything that,
You're a
that
professional
causes
at
the
this.
development to be in non-compliance with existing regulations.
Yeah, and if
that's
somebody met the
understood.
minimum and we felt that it wasn't adequate, we would have made it a condition of approval to add a couple more spaces, so it would have condition of approval theoretically, right?
I think we should have, understand that the minimums are the minimums, and there has to be some type of verbiage that says that. I do agree.
So
we
somebody could build some, like the last thing we just approved, they had more than required. Right, well, forget that it's 30G. They
No,
had
we're
more
not-
that's
we're not
required. They can
speaking
come
about
back
that
later
regulation.
and change.
Yeah, we-
Or that application.
Sorry.
all right, so we're good? So we
Okay.
can do that, right?
Okay, so
can do
you,
that.
but we're not going to set the public hearing yet,
No.
No.
because we want to see
Not
this.
yet.
You want to see it?
Correct.
We gotta see the language, yeah.
Okay.
I trust you, but I don't want to see.
Item
Yeah,
5C.
well, and you should.
Proposed zoning regulation amendment, Town of Rocky Hill, for the discussion and setting public hearing. 1, add to Town of Rocky Hill zoning regulations, Section 2B as in boy. Define terms, electric vehicle charging station, an electric component assembly or cluster of component assemblies designed specifically to charge batteries within electric vehicles by permitting the transfer of electric energy to a battery or other storage device in an electric vehicle. Oof. Related definitions, direct current fast charging station, an electric vehicle charging station that utilizes direct current electricity, 40 kilowatts or greater. Level 2 electric vehicles charging station, electric vehicle charging station that supplies 208 or 240 volt alternating current. Public electric vehicle charging station, an electric vehicle charging station locally located at a publicly available parking space. Number 2, modify section 7B21, number of parking spaces, to add: the commission shall require with each new construction of a commercial building or a multi-unit residential building with 30 or more parking spaces for cars or light-duty trucks to include the electric vehicle charging infrastructure capable of supporting level 2 electric vehicle charging stations or direct current fast charging stations in at least a minimum of 10% of the required parking spaces.
These were taken directly from Public Act, I believe it's 2227, I believe, 2020, about electrical vehicle charging stations. And so we get all the requests. We've had some that came in as minor changes that were not well received. And I'm putting in the regulations, so.
Makes sense to me.
So,
So we need to,
I am suggesting,
Comments, and, I mean, this is per statute, so.
it's,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I
per
think that-
statute. I'm also suggesting that we have a public hearing on September 20th. And we have time because I've already, in hopes that the commission would set that hearing date, I I did send it on to CROG and on to the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments, and with the caveat that they may change the hearing date, but,
So it says September 20th, right?
yeah. So I had sent it
Motion to-
on.
Motion,
Motion to move the electrical charging
amendment, or regulation.
definitions and changes to the regulations to public hearing on September 20th, 2023.
Can I have a second,
I'll
please?
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
That's Connecticut Day at the Big E.
Hey,
Oh.
I know we already
Wait.
voted to move it, but
Well-
just a question, what we heard tonight is to make somebody put in this exact wording as 10% charging stations if 30 or more feet. What about what we heard tonight about EV ready versus EV charging? I mean, do you want to make somebody pay for charging if there's not the demand? Although EV ready makes sense, then you can simply.
See, this is the statute, right? So this,
Is this what they're saying we
This is a
have to
statute.
do?
I would
This is a
say.
statute.
So this is a statute.
This is
We
the
can go
Public Act.
above- but can we go
Wow.
above and beyond the
we
statute?
can go above,
Yeah.
we cannot go
Don't.
below.
We can't go.
I don't know that I would go above right now.
No, it'd be 10%.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the proposal that was in front of us, if there's 90 spaces, that would have been 9 EV charging stations, and we're getting 4. But they
No,
gave us
4
8.
plus 8.
Well, no, the 8 was EV ready.
Right.
4 was, there were only gonna
The
be 4
eight-
charging stations.
The 8 was if they determined that,
There's a need.
that their residents.
They-
Right.
They put the conduits on the
So
ground.
it was there, so it
They
is,
just add the.
They did the site work
station.
already.
Right, but
See, that's
this
good
is
as-
saying the actual charging stations, not EV ready.
That's
That's,
correct.
right, you can't, I mean, that was an offer.
Yeah,
That isn't a requirement.
right,
So I wouldn't get into that part of
And
it.
we don't have any requirement right now.
yeah.
Do you know how long it takes to charge a car?
But what we're doing is we're putting
So-
forth a
So
requirement.
this is just for new development.
the-
In the future, if there's an existing development,
exactly.
we can't require them to,
yeah.
can we require them to retrofit an existing development?
But he's, no, we can't. What
We
he's
can't.
saying is that, should we
Market
include
driven.
the language to say EV or EV ready?
No, I think it should just be E
But this says EV, so.
It says EV
statute-
charging stations, where you have to spend a couple grand per parking space
Fine.
to buy
but
the
that's-
charging.
That's what the legislature.
And I
told
didn't
us.
even put in about there must be one handicap accessible EV
Oh.
charging station.
One what?
Handicap.
Handicap accessible.
Handicapped accessible.
Okay, well,
Oh.
Well, that-
Oh, why
well, once
not?
we get,
Maybe we need one of those.
once there's more
Maybe
EV
we need
cars,
one of
then
those.
that'll come.
Can
you
we
know,
do that?
Right
I would-
now.
We add it?
I heard there's a shortage of,
okay,
okay.
we we passed it.
Item 6A. Zoning enforcement.
Okay. I do want to let the commission know that a job description has been finally approved And it's my understanding there is something on the website saying that we are looking for an assistant town planner and zoning enforcement officer. So I've been asked to put together resume review criteria to weed out people as far as what the requirements are, just so you know. So that's finally in the works, so.
But that's not a concern of us, actually. That's just a,
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Report,
Just,
something.
We can
Well,
all apply
it's
for
letting
it.
you know,
yeah.
something to let you know.
Yep.
Let's see, is there something good on here? We did have a request, and we've had some requests for zoning compliance letters, and some have not been able to be issued because of zoning violations on site. I've been going round and round with 945 Cromwell Avenue, that was the Ace Hardware, with respect to the outdoor sales. So they were issued a violation letter also.
So there went out the letter.
Yeah. So,
No, which one is
trying
it
to-
here?
trying to think of what else. We still have a lot of blight complaints, and that's something that I enforce. And then while Dave Pomberg has moved on to engineering department, in his job description, he too does blight.
Oh.
So the things on this list are kind of like both of ours, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we have fun that way. So, I don't know what else. I don't know if there's anything else you want to,
Any minor modification, nothing?
no.
Wait till next month.
You may have some.
I'm
Plan
teasing.
implementation committee, the meeting
Plan
was
implementation
canceled.
committee, we did not have a meeting on 8/2, so I will confer with the chair or the vice chair as far as if you would want to set a special meeting, or you just want to wait till the regular schedule.
Which is,
I mean, now it's,
which one's the next one?
It would be.
October?
October.
no, we are every
And we
quarter.
would be talking about, I mean,
Quarterly,
so,
Well, whenever it
quarterly,
is.
so
It's
it's,
so
quarterly.
it's like every 2 months.
Yeah,
It's every 2 months, but
which would be October.
would we miss anything that has to go to town council if we don't?
It's October 4th.
we are talking, just so you know, prior to this meeting, we were talking about capital improvements programming and how the planning commission really should be involved with that. And it should be tied to our POCD. Through the years that I've been here, it hasn't, in my opinion, been done the way it really should have been done. It's usually department requests go into for the budget process, and it goes to the town manager and finance, and it goes through the town council, but it really should be tied to our POCD as well, and more of a strategic plan. So that's what we were talking about at the CIP meeting. So my hope is that this commission will get involved with that process. And
This committee, the committee or this commission?
this
or the-
commission.
Okay.
Pick May, but I think we're at ground zero for getting this going. So process whereby each department is given like an inventory sheet of your assets, meaning large assets, meaning buildings, structures, large pieces of equipment, that type of thing. And then priorities will be issued by the department heads as to what's needed. Do we need a new town garage? Do we need whatever? And put that out there, and it goes into the POCD if this commission so chooses, and then there's a priority set.
Well, wait till it
Because
happens.
we're, and think beyond a 5-year time frame. It's
So-
like a
so I
4 to
think-
6-year time frame, a 10-year time frame, a 20-year time frame, and
So the question right now is for PIC, is there anything that is pending for PIC to act So do we have to meet before October 4th?
Yeah, that's what was.
I'm not,
Pressing. Anything?
There is, if there is nothing pressing, then we can meet on October 4th.
no, we have the affordable housing
But that's a,
ordinance that's being dealt with Monday evening.
but that's in council. I think that.
That's at the council level,
Yes.
they're being dealt with, yeah.
But there is
The
no
answer-
action
Answer to
pending
the
from
question
PIC.
is no.
Yeah, so there is nothing pending in terms of PIC.
I don't think,
Okay, so we can
I'm sorry, I'm
do
tired.
October 4th.
October 4th, okay.
I mean, that's on the schedule, I think that's. Legislation, no legislation. Right.
They're not in session, are they?
not in session.
Yeah.
Communications,
I don't believe so.
nothing really.
No.
Approved bills, we don't have approved bills.
No
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, aye.
Aye.
This is amazing.